So, a couple of thoughts there. There's a lot of insincerity and just overall emphasis on the optics in pretty much every company. It doesn't matter how great of a culture it is. And particularly once you exceed a certain size, it's just a fact. In fact, your success as the CEO or the founder is how long you can delay it. You can never delay it forever. Does it set in at 10 employees? Does it set in at 50 employees? Does it set in at 150 employees or 500 or 2000 or 5000, right? You look at companies like Google, it's like easy for people to make fun of Google today. But what people don't understand is Google was able to postpone some of these challenges that companies face as they get more people for up until it was in thousands of employees, which very few companies have been successful in doing that. And so, to their credit, they did a spectacular job of that from a culture perspective and leadership perspective. Again, it's hard for some people to even remember. Maybe some listeners were school or elementary school. That's the time we're talking about, like between, say, 2002 to 2008, 2009, right? So I find like that is just a fact of corporate life, this expectation of having the right optics. And therefore, it results in insincerity, which then manifests as saying, I don't know, is a punishable crime. And I'm not talking about LinkedIn theory where somebody can write a viral post saying, you know what, saying I don't know is such a wonderful thing and everybody will like it. But I have actually asked many people, including students that I teach, that would it be acceptable for you to say in a product review meeting with your CEO at your company where you're presenting something and the CEO asks a very edge casey, detailed question about some numbers related to an area of your product that also overlaps with something else. And if the CEO asks about that, if you said, I don't know, what is that going to be? Is that going to be your manager patting you on the back for doing it and saying, great job? Is that going to be your manager having a conversation the next day saying, hey, I want to discuss how you presented to our CEO? And most people say, I mean, like 90+% say it's the latter, that your manager is going to give you feedback that you're supposed to know these things. But we've already established this is some edge casey detail. No, it doesn't matter. You're supposed to know the detail. That is the expectation we've set. Now, it is logically the case that it would be impossible for any single human being to know every single detail about a non-trivially sized product. So if you're managing a large product area, you don't have to take it on faith. It is logically the case that it is impossible to know every single detail. Say you have 200 customers, CEO asks, how is this customer using this feature? How are you supposed to know that? You are not going to know that off the top of your head. And some people will say, but you know what? The right answer is say, I don't know, but I'll find out and then find out. Cool. I like that answer. But you will still not be viewed positively. Whereas if you just rattled off part BS, or if you smartly diverted that question in a way nobody could figure it out, like a politician, you did not answer the question that was asked, then you will be seen as smart and capable and being on top of all the details. So either if you bullshit, or if you just redirect and misdirect, organizations are incentivizing you to do this. And this is merely one example, a high stakes example, certainly from a performance review standpoint. But these examples are everywhere at all levels. It's not just in meetings with the CEO. So that is what is happening on the ground in nearly every company. Again, going back to all problems are product leadership problems. So now the situation would be different if the product leader involved has the judgment and the courage, and it requires both judgment and courage. The judgment to say, yes, there is no way you could have known the answer to this question. And then the courage to tell the CEO, it's cool, it's fine. You asked a valid question, we'll get you the answer. But I don't think you should be getting upset that you asked some random question about one customer out of 200 or 2000 and how they're using this. Like, you cannot expect the answer. This is not where we get leverage. We're not walking Google indexes. That's not the point. Judgment is the key thing here. That is how this problem becomes a product leadership problem. The challenge is most product leaders either are lacking sufficient judgment. Again, these are capable people, so I trust that they, in most cases, have the judgment, but they don't have the courage. Again, this is not a criticism of the individual. I understand why it's hard to gather that courage. But that's where I'll make another observation. And this is something I do when I coach CEOs and founders for dealing with whatever situation they're dealing with within their company, is oftentimes it is not a lack of courage. It's that we don't have the right words. So in that sense, like if you found the right words, we can actually sometimes find the courage. It is such an interesting phenomenon that I've seen repeat over and over again. not just in my career, but in careers of individuals I've coached. We are afraid because we don't have the right words. But when the right words emerge somehow, it's not that we're no longer afraid, but now the fear is much lower. Influence is not just about the basic stuff that everybody talks about, mirror their body language and like make them feel heard. That's all like basic stuff. It's these nuanced things that actually make the difference between a high degree of influence and mediocre, moderate influence.